Hi, and what is your name?
My name is Professor Barry Goldsmith. I'm an architecture professor, and I'm also a lover of architecture of China, in particularly Hangzhou. It's a remarkable city, and I'm not the first to discover it. That goes back further than I do, even.
Before
It's
we get into that, can you tell us
okay.
about some of the publications that you've written for as a journalist?
Yeah, I've written for the New York Times. I've written for travel publications, Jack's Facts. I've had a column there, been there, haven't done that for now going on 8 years. I've also written for the Daily Telegraph of London, and I've also contributed online to National Geographic Traveler.
And you've got a new venture that you're starting. You want to quickly plug that?
Yes, it's been there, haven't done that, which was my column for tour operators and travel agents in Jack's Facts, is now coming to the Salem Radio Network. It's called Been There, Haven't Done That. Gee, I stole my own title. And it's coming to the New York tri-state area late 2017, and it's hopefully going national in early 2018. And no matter where I am, print, radio, or even television, I've got television coming up, one of my favorite places in the world and in China is Hangzhou.
And how recently have you been there?
I was there, in fact, I brought a press group there, journalists there. It was 2010. And it's one place that you have to really go back every year or every 2 years because the infrastructure, the hotels are becoming more and more luxurious, more and more upscale, and there are more and more buildings, infrastructure is better, and as you know in China, the trains get faster and faster. And it shouldn't just be a day trip from Shanghai. You should actually spend at least a long weekend there. There's so much to see.
All right, let's start with your favorite. Take away. What was the most memorable thing that you experienced when you were traveling through Hangzhou?
It's the sculpture, the sculpture that goes back thousands of years, some of it thousands of years, especially the grotto at peak flying from afar. As you walk to the Lingyang Temple and Monastery, you see sides of cliffs and walls with sculpture, Buddhas. There's even the Baocheng Temple with all kinds of, like in Europe, in medieval Europe, they'd be called gargoyles. They're figures to dispel evil. But in the grotto from the Flying Peak from afar, you see everything. Buddhas, laughing Buddhas. In fact, one person on my press trip had to get a picture of me imitating the Buddha because I also was a comedy professor and I laugh a lot. So the laughing Buddha is more or less my symbol, and I'm basically in love with that, and I use that to promote myself as well as Hangzhou.
That's funny. So, all right, what would you say is the big thing that everyone who goes to Hangzhou either sees or should see if they don't?
Well, I would say water. And when I'm not talking about Niagara Falls. I'm talking about Hangzhou, still a lake. In fact, there's a double whammy here. There are other cities on the famous Grand Canal in China, but this is a city that's famous for being on the Grand Canal and having its own lake, the West Lake, and it's absolutely spectacular. There are different scenes as you go, depending upon the causeway. A causeway is it's like a road in the middle of the lake, and there's more than one. So one day I took one causeway, and another day I took another causeway, and the causeways alone give you cause to go to Hangzhou. And something else, no matter you walk a block or so, and then there are floating lilies, there are pavilions, there are pagodas, and it's as if every block or so when you walk, it's a new image, it's a new view. And one of the things I love about Chinese gardens and Chinese viewing and sightseeing in general is it's not just what's in the area. And I'll give you an example, the Six Harmonies Pagoda or the Lefang Pagoda. They may be in the distance, but yet they become part of the view you take in from the West Lake, and it keeps on changing. And no matter how many times you go, you look at north or on the West Lake, it's one view. You turn around, you look south, it's another view, and it's truly spectacular.
And what would you say is the best time to go and experience the lake?
You mean the time of the year or time of the day?
Either one or both.
I like it basically at midday after the fog burns off. However, if you love, for instance, the Ballet Swan Lake, and you really have this thing for mist, when the swans come on and they throw the mist on the stage, go in the morning or in the late afternoon and you'll see mist. And there's almost a certain, there's no wrong time to see the West Lake in Hangzhou. It depends on what you like. If you want to take pictures and you don't have a good camera, go at high noon. If you have an excellent camera that takes great pictures in the fog, there's something mysterious about seeing it with a little fog. I hope that answers your question.
No, it definitely does. Do you think the fact that West Lake has the UNESCO designation makes it attractive to U.S. visitors?
I love it no matter what. And in a way, I'm glad it has the UNESCO status because I think more people should go there and more people should know it. But I kind of like things just before they become UNESCO, where I think I'm the only one seeing it. But I'm happy for Hangzhou, and I'm happy for the people and for the hospitality infrastructure there, because many more people should visit it. And now, since I've been there, you have the infrastructure to handle many more tourists and the UNESCO's status.
Yeah, and I believe Grand Canal has the UNESCO status as well.
Right, Grand Canal. But as I said, it's a double whammy. If you like water, Hangzhou, unlike other Grand Canal cities, have the Grand Canal and the West Lake.
Great. Is there anything else that you could tell us in terms of what to you would put Hangzhou on the map for travelers that might not otherwise go there but should consider it?
Well, there are lots of interesting museums, and there's also, since I'm an architecture professor, great architecture. There's Beishan Road, which has lots of, I guess, it's architecture from when it was the colonial period, late 19th, early 20th century. And I like some of the buildings there because they're somewhat eclectic, combining several different styles. And you don't see that in Beijing anymore because of the Boxer Rebellion. A lot of those delegations went. And you see a great collection of different architecture from different periods at that. And there's also the Kiln Museum, which I like one particular room in which the kiln in the middle, it's an ancient one, and you see the remains of it, and yet there are two modern staircases on either side, and it looks like an interpretation of the royal, I guess it's the royal ramps that you find in the Forbidden City. It's a great museum that shouldn't be missed too. And there's so many museums. There's even an apothecary, a pharmacy, that I remember going into. And maybe I recall correctly or incorrectly, I think they had leeches, which is how George Washington died young. If they didn't have leeches, what can I say? He still wouldn't be living today because he'd be 200 and something, even though he'd probably look about 190.
Hangzhou highlights, what would you say are the biggest things that people are going to want to go there for?
You know what? The biggest things are the sites that have been deemed UNESCO, and there's a very good reason. Being a city on the Grand Canal and having the West Lake is a double whammy, so hence the double UNESCO status, which is great. Actually, the Grand Canal is the larger venue. It gets you there, and it's poised on it, and then once you're there, you go see the West Lake. You're surrounded really by water. It's almost like being vacationing or being in a peninsula. And it's a great place for a meeting, a conference, just relaxing. Speaking of conferences, as I recall, the G20 Summit in 2016 was held in Hangzhou. And I believe it's the second time in Asia. The first time was in Korea. No, it wasn't North Korea. It was South Korea, of course. Anyway, and there's now that it's UNESCO, two sites, you'll want to go there. And guess what? It's easier to go there for several reasons. First, there's a 144-hour visa free. From Shanghai, you enter, and you can spend 2 or 3 days easily there, and a day or two in Shanghai, and you don't have to go through the trouble or the expense of getting a visa. And that's really a wonderful new way to enter China. It's relaxing as being on the lake in Hangzhou. And the other is, you don't even have to go to Shanghai if you've been there a dozen times. Spend all the time in Hangzhou, and there's a great way to do it. From San Francisco and Los Angeles, there are flights nonstop on great Chinese airlines and United even from San Francisco. So I've told you many reasons to go to I've told you many reasons to go to Hangzhou, and you know what? I can't think of any reason not to. In fact, guess what? It's about time I went back to Hangzhou.
And can you tell us about some of the big highlights for travel to Hangzhou?
Well, I can tell you just the highlights alone, but we don't have another 2 hours. I don't have another 2 hours on this. Actually, both of the highlights center around two main attractions, the Grand Canal and the West Lake. And coincidentally, both those attractions, the Grand Canal and West Lake, are now UNESCO World Heritage Sites, which is absolutely terrific. And you know, it's easier to get to Hangzhou. There are now nonstop flights from San Francisco and from Los Angeles, and on Chinese airlines and United from San Francisco. And should you go to want to go to Shanghai too, and if you haven't been, I don't see why not. There's a 144-hour visa-free policy, so you don't even have to spend money and go to your consulate in the States, in Chinese consulate, wait in line, and that's something that's great, and it's relatively new. So I can't think of any reason not to go to Hangzhou. It's absolutely wonderful. And you know what? The more I talk about this, it's been 6 years since I've been there. And you know what? I've got to get back. So United, China Southern Airlines, do you hear that? Here I am. Send for me.